to Tony, I will meet Tom Theakston, who is a regular client at 34 Mayfair. So hi Tom.
Hi there, no, thank you very much for having me.
Tony told me you were a regular client at 34 Mayfair. You currently work at Diageo as a head of sales regarding reserve brands?
Yes, correct. So I run the reserve entree team, looking after, when we say reserve products, we mean our premium portfolio across the GB market.
What are the occasions that brings you here at 34 Mayfair?
34 Mayfair is owned by Caprice Holdings, which is a company we work very closely with. They're excellent partners of ours. And I think when you're looking to host people for a special occasion, what really you look for is obviously the obvious points of sort of quality and atmosphere, but really you also want a partner you can trust and you know is absolutely going to deliver every time for you. And Caprice, amongst many of our good partners, are one that we trust very much, and so we work with them very closely.
What kind of client do we invite at 34 Mayfair?
It massively depends. I mean, we work with all sorts of people from all parts of the industry, and there's no set criteria for it. When you look at, why are you hosting somebody for lunch or a dinner, and the occasion can massively change, but the end is always the same, which is you're trying to forge a relationship. And this is absolutely a relationship-driven industry, and people do business with people, and without that human connection, you are never going to succeed. So working with people, it doesn't always have to be an expensive lunch. It can be going for a coffee, going for a drink, just meeting socially. But a dinner is obviously or dinner or lunch is always a great place because you have a lot of somebody's time and you usually have undivided attention of that person as well. So you can sit in a relatively informal setting, and actually if you're in a business meeting, you're in a boardroom, you're in a meeting room, it can always feel a bit formal. Whereas if you remove the formality of the office and you go into a sort of a more casual setting, often issues become easier to discuss, and usually that relationship is forged, and therefore it just becomes easier to discuss things.
Do you have business goals whenever you invite some clients in a restaurant?
Yes and no. As I say, most of the objective is developing a relationship with that person. So that can be going for a lunch and spending 0% of that lunch discussing anything to do with work. You're building a relationship, and then that would lead to, when you're having a conversation with somebody, you can be a bit more blunt. If rather than skirting around a subject, you can be a little bit more direct and say, look, level with me here. We know each other quite well. You're being quite tough on this point. So, can you explain that a bit further? And that conversation becomes a bit easier to have.
And what kind of conversation do you usually have? What do you talk about?
I mean, as I say, that can massively depends. It can be something sort of, what are you, very superficial, sort of like, where are you going on holiday next, or sort of like, I was there. And again, you're building a rapport with a person. And I think it's important to understand, like, what does that person want to speak about? To be a great partner, you should spend a lot more time listening than talking yourself. So we tend to ask, if I'm meeting somebody and I'm trying to understand their business and I'm trying to understand where they would like to go with their business, I generally tend to ask very broad questions and then let them lead the conversation, because ultimately my role as a supplier is to supply and support, and the best supporting supplier I can be is by listening and to understand what their needs and wants are, their ambitions, and then from there I can then understand actually how best do we support this person.
And what kind of question do you first ask so that they can talk?
If you're meeting somebody for the first time, I mean, it's pretty unlikely we would come and have a big lunch, because that'd be a weirdly formal thing to do. If you're sort of going for a lunch and just to catch up, it's usually just the initial part is just finding out, how are they personally? There's, what's going on in their lives, and just it's always interesting to develop a bit more of a rapport there. I think a great customer relationship also often develops into a friendship. And first time you meet one of your friends, I'm sure you don't ask what their goals and objectives are for Q1. You'd want to hear, how are they? When you're sort of saying, how can we support you? What's your big vision? I love asking questions like, sort of imagine money is no object. What's the most insane idea you have at the moment? How would you go about doing that? And then usually you get this incredible answer that is so much more creative than if you say, right, we have X amount of money, what can we do for that? Because that's all that you're straight away, you put a limit on a question. 99 times out of 100, it's not going to be possible because they're going to say something that's truly insane. However, if you have something incredibly ambitious to aim at, you usually get to a better outcome. If you spend an entire dinner sitting down and talking about our agenda, we are like, I'm going to do this, like Diageo are going to do this, that's not us being a good partner, that's just me telling you what I want to do. To be a good partner, you have to listen. And to listen, you have to get somebody to tell you. And if you ask a leading question, again, you're steering their answer. So I find if you ask a very broad question and say, you know, for example, what is the wildest plan you have? What you know, money no object, what's a dream you would love to achieve in the next 2 years? They're going to give you a very rich answer. It's going to be a very broad story. It's going to have lots of tangents. And then that usually then leads to a more plausible outcome, but a more plausible outcome which is far more ambitious than something they would have given you otherwise. So we tend to ask a very broad question and then listen.
What is the most ambitious or coolest project you've ever made?
We work with a lot of clients, and we absolutely don't prioritize one over another, and we give everybody exactly the same level of support and treatment because we want to be agnostic across everybody we work with. But to give you one example, given that we are in a Caprice site, Tony and I and a few members of the Caprice team a while ago were having that exact conversation, and were saying, you know, what is your wildest idea? And they own many amazing brands around the world. One of which is Sexy Fish, which they now have in London, Manchester and Miami, an amazing brand. They also have a site in Mykonos, Nuema, an amazing restaurant. And we said, well, you know, what if we brought Sexy Fish to Mykonos? Did Sexy Fish pop up with Mykonos, in Mykonos for the whole summer, in partnership with one of our high energy tequila brands, Don Julio 1942. And again, that's a very ambitious plan, to bring an entire site, run a pop-up restaurant for better part of 4 or maybe 5 months on an island. And that's evolved into what has now become a Don Julio 1942 partnership with Nuema restaurants in Mykonos town for the whole summer, where we've created an amazing experience in what was an old gallery space next to Nuema, where we were going to have a pop-up shop for 1942, personalisation of the bottles, and then of course a tie to Nuema itself. So I think personalisation is becoming a very big part of the premium experience. And for us to be able to give somebody a little bit more when they go and book a table and they want to have a bottle of 1942 on the table, you can have that person's name engraved on the bottle ready for when they arrive. So from what started as a very broad question, what could we do? Oh, we could bring Sexy Fish to Mykonos, where what we've done is actually taken a gallery space near one of their existing restaurants and created a 1942 pop-up for that period of time. So would we have probably gone, I've got an idea, let's do that, without the very broad question and them leading the answer? Probably not. But I think it's an amazing example of actually when you have a very ambitious customer who wants to work very closely with us, that there is often no limit to how amazing the outcome can be.